everyone who's here. You may be just joining us or watching in the future. I don't know. But welcome to the first of the NFLC's webinar series, NFLC being the National Foreign Language Center. We use acronyms way too much here. But we are going to be talking about all things world language related. And tonight, we're going to specifically talk about professional development for world language teachers. So before we begin that, and I bring my colleague on, I'm going to just share a little bit about myself. I am the Director of Strategic Initiatives and Communication, which is a huge mouthful, but it essentially means that I like talking to people and I like making friends. So if you are a world language teacher and you want to get connected with our resources, you're in the right place and talking with the right people. So now I'll introduce to you my superstar of a colleague, Thomas Sauer. He is the co-director of PEARLL, which stands for Professionals in Education Advancing Language Learning. That's also a mouthful, so we just say PEARLL. And he's also the assistant director of resource development here at the NFLC. So Thomas,
hi,
welcome.
Megan. How are you?
Hi. It's been so long.
I know.
Oh gosh. So if anybody's in that chat right now and just joining, we'd love to know where you're joining from and your name, of course. And also if you are affiliated with education in any way, whether that's a teacher or, an administrator or a parent, anybody. So we'd love to hear from you as well. So Thomas, I just want a little synopsis, little snapshot of your background before we kind of jump in.
Sure. Well, I've kind of done PD for my whole professional life in a weird way. So I started off as a German teacher in a distance learning program for our local PBS station. And somehow somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, can you do some PD for teachers? Can you teach them how to use," you'll laugh, "can you teach them how to use PowerPoint and how to make a brochure in Microsoft Publisher? And can you teach them how to do that in German and French and Spanish?" So I did like my very first workshop ever. We installed Microsoft Office in all the different languages in a computer lab at the university, and then brought in language teachers. This was the summer of '99. And so, yeah, and I learned how to talk with teachers, how to train them on things that they've never done before. Wow. And then the other thing was, because I was teaching on television, I always had to think about what students will do instead of just what I was doing. Or maybe it's the connection between, in your classroom, kids will look at you and make funny faces. And when they don't understand, you'll get that, "What are you talking about?" look. But when you're teaching on television and you're just looking into the camera, you have to anticipate the reaction of the students for everything that you say, everything that you want them to do without them being there. I didn't see my students. I had 450 students all around the country. And wow. I always had to think about, okay, if I say this, what will they hear? What will they do? How will they react? And so I've been thinking about learning and about, causing learning to happen my entire professional life. And so after that initial job, I've just been involved in all kinds of professional development opportunities, being district supervisor, being an independent consultant, and now at NFLC.
That's amazing. And I'm super obsessed with the fact that you used to be on TV because, like, guys, he's a superstar among us, and it's wild. And so something resonated with me a lot was when you were like, I have to anticipate what people's reactions may be, my students' reactions may be, and also you're likely tailoring your the way you come across to them very differently as well, no?
Yeah. I'm always thinking about, okay, if I say that, what will the response be, right?
Yeah, super interesting. So Dr. Sean Williams is here from Minnesota. He's not a language teacher, but involved in bringing languages to campus. So happy you're here because you're so important. We need you. And then we have two other LinkedIn users. I don't know their names, but they said hi. One of them is from Baltimore. So hello, my fellow Baltimore people. I am from Baltimore, East Baltimore. And Thomas, you are from? I guess you have like multiple things you could
Yeah,
rep.
Germany. Well, now from Maryland via Germany and Kentucky.
Okay, cool. And I should also note that he was a star in Kentucky PBS. So
Yeah.
do you ever go back there and people like, oh my God, no.
No.
I guess all your viewers are probably people who've grown up by now.
Yeah, they can teach themselves now, and actually, we do. I do have a former student of mine who ended up becoming a German teacher who was a
Wow.
part of that distance learning program. Yeah.
That's so cool. We ought to have all three of us on here to like have that
Yeah.
conversation. That'd be cool. All right, so let's just jump right into it. So the NFLC is talking tonight about professional development in a post-COVID world.
Yep.
AKA, we're doing so much stuff online. We're all sick of online. So, we thought, let's do another thing online, webinar, right? So this is more of like a casual kind of kick it back to each other kind of conversation. But could you talk a little bit about PEARLL and just what exactly PEARLL is for those who aren't aware, and also what an LRC is? I mean, again, all these different acronyms. So if you could share a little bit about that and also the mission that goes with it.
Sure. So PEARLL is as you said, it's an LRC, a Language Resource Center, which is a program from the U.S. Department of Education. There are 16 of these centers all around the country at different universities, and they all have a mission of supporting foreign language education in America. Every center has a different focus. Some of them are language specific, some of them are region specific, some are specific to a certain practice in language teaching. And our center happens to be focused on professional development. And so our whole mission, our center, is to basically, we try to figure out, well, I always say we try to figure out the answer, what will cause teachers to change their behavior, which is, super easy question we can answer in 5 minutes.
Right. Awesome. So then why PEARLL? Like what's the inspiration behind it, and the creation, and what needs does it exactly address or aim to address?
Yeah, so in trying to find that answer to the question, what causes teachers to change their practices, we want to try out different kinds of PD. We want to figure out, let's try this PD, see if it works. Maybe it doesn't work. And then research the effectiveness of the PD, both as far as the impact on teachers, but also impact on student learning. So, yeah.
So Dr. Williams asks, is there a website for LRCs?
There is. It is, it is nflrc.org. It's actually brand new. They just redid it. I'll respond to a comment as well. There we go.
And how many LRCs are there in the US?
16. And
16.
So that website has information about each of the centers and what they're doing, what their focus is.
And I understand that PEARLL is unique in that it focuses on professional development. Is that correct?
Yeah. Every center offers some kind of professional development, but we have chosen to really not just offer it, but also like, okay, we're going to offer it, and then we're going to study the impact of it and study the effectiveness of it, study so we've been trying things, and some things work and some things don't work. And then, of course, right. COVID happened, and all the plans went out the window anyways. So now we're really trying new things.
Well, that kind of leads me to my next question, is that what effect exactly has COVID-19 had on teacher professional development? And, how is PEARLL specifically going about addressing that?
I mean, we know that everything has changed with COVID for everybody. And so it did for PD. I think before we talk about changing, we want to talk about what it looked like before.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because I was part of that. That was my job, to PD.
Right.
To do PD. It's like literally travel the country, 3 different cities a week. And, it was a typical thing. Bring in the expert, have them do some workshop for 3 hours, and then nothing changed, of course, right? Like teachers knew out, and it was very silly because the teachers knew it and I knew it. Like I knew they didn't care what I had to say, and they knew Well, I mean, because that they were there because they had to, and then
Right.
they didn't care what I had to say because like, oh, he'll be gone anyways. Like if we just sit through it,
Right.
they'd be like, what are they giving us for lunch today? Like,
Right.
so there's this sit and get once a year model or twice a year model just wasn't working. But that's what we were doing. We I mean, the whole world in training was working like that. We had certain experts or gurus or whatever you want to call them in every field, and they would do trainings and workshops. And often they were like, "Do as I say, not as I do." Right. So that was the other,
Mm.
like, especially in teacher training. Like so many of the workshops are often. I mean, every teacher has gone to a training where they're talking about student centeredness, and it's like the trainer is talking the entire time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Well,
that
I mean, that's not only, that's not only teacher professional development. I mean,
oh
I feel like that's everywhere. And just COVID has just slammed into it and changed it in just different ways. The whole dynamic is completely different. Whole
yeah.
dynamic.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. Adult learning has like, so we all had to learn new stuff. Teachers had to learn new stuff. Every profession had to learn new things. So how did we do
Mm-hmm.
that? We just tried it out, and then everybody put it on Twitter and YouTube and wherever else they wanted to put it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we just all figured it out collectively. There were no expert. There was no COVID expert on how to now do your job in a COVID world. But we all
Right.
became everybody became expert because everybody all of a sudden wasn't afraid to try something new. Like that was my favorite part of you can say that, of the pandemic, that it like lowered everybody's level of being scared, because now
Yeah.
we were all trying new things. Everybody was trying new things all the time. Some worked, some of them didn't.
Yeah.
And in the case of teachers, not only were they trying new things, they were sharing things.
And that's
And
awesome, right? Is that like
oh
sort of something that was not occurring before because of maybe
no,
technology, or just it wasn't common practice?
it wasn't a common practice, and because teachers were always felt like they were being judged. And so
Mm-hmm.
in a regular school, doesn't matter if it's K-12 or university, you just go as an educator, you go into a room, you shut the door, and you do your thing. You'll get
Mm-hmm.
judged by those 20 human beings in the room, but not by anybody else. Not by
Right.
somebody, not by a colleague, not by whatever.
Right.
And so with COVID, that all changed because, well, now the parents could see exactly what was happening in that room because the kids were in front of a screen on the kitchen table.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just
Oh
lowered
God, I
that
remember
filter.
those days.
Yeah.
God.
So it lowered the filter for everybody. And I
Mm-hmm.
think then it opened the door for teachers to like, oh, well, if all these parents can see what I'm doing, maybe I can share it with other teachers too. And so now teachers
Mm.
finally are starting to share things at like, it wasn't a polished presentation. It wasn't a well thought out workshop. It was just like, hey, I'm doing this today, and
Right.
it worked. And
You know,
everybody's
and
like,
I think that's my favorite thing about COVID and the effects of like people going all over the internet now, whether that's to social media or whatever platforms they use, is this people are just putting unpolished material out. And so often it's like, no, that's only for professionals. Professional people can only do that. And now anybody can do that. And then everybody's light shines more because
yeah,
they don't have that added pressure. And
yeah,
they had, like in the case of COVID, they had to, this was their only method of getting information across.
exactly.
That's awesome. And we have a few others that have just joined us. Nelly Castillo from Puerto Rico, teaching in Atlanta, ATL. I would assume that's Atlanta. Uh, Brahim Busad is from Dublin, Ohio, and a subject matter expert, I suppose. I believe that's what he mentioned here. That's awesome. Okay, so the title of our talk this evening sort of alludes to this, but could you talk a little bit more about how PEARLL engages participants beyond the traditional ways that we had just been discussing?
Mm-hmm. So we've been trying a couple of things and planning for even more, but I think that one of the big things is for people to even understand, help teachers understand what they know and what they don't know. Because I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
biggest problem for many educators. They don't know what they're really good at, and they don't know what they're not good at. And so, partially because our evaluation system sucks, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
in education, and it hasn't really worked, and it's super difficult to get honest feedback. The other reason because we haven't opened the doors until literally just recently, so
Mm-hmm.
nobody really knows what they're doing well. So I meet all the teachers who are amazing, but they can't tell you why they're amazing. And then I meet teachers who really, need a lot of support, um, but they think they're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have developed an online platform called Catalyst, which helps teachers identify their strength, helps them identify the growth areas, helps them connect with other teachers who have the same strength, the same growth areas. It's kind of like a social media LinkedIn for language teachers.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, it's super fun. We did it together with our colleagues at another LLC at the University of Oregon, Castles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's free, which is also really cool. And so people can create, like, they can set goals, they can self-assess, they can upload evidence, they can share resources with each other. And it's all grassroots driven. Like, there's nobody, because it's like social media, there's no overlord looking at things, approving things. It's just people connecting and sharing and thinking about their own practice. So that's one of the tools we have put out there.
And
um
then if we could pause for that, how do
yeah.
people access Catalyst?
Oh, great question. They'll just go to Catalyst. Let me type it in the chat too. Catalyst.uoregon. Or it helps if I knew how to spell Oregon. Oregon.edu. So
Awesome. That's great. Um, and do you know how many users are on Catalyst? Like, because I believe if you join, you can get a mentor, you can, develop and join different communities and things of that nature. And it's all across the United States. Is it outside of the US as well?
yeah, anybody can use it outside the United
Okay,
States. Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah, you can set up groups. You can have even classes on it. We have run
Wow.
some of our online classes on there. The last time I checked, it was over 3,000 users. So I haven't checked in a while. I probably should. But yeah, last check was over 3,000 users. So it's pretty cool.
That's amazing. That's
Mhm.
really great. Awesome. How about something called the TELL framework? Could you share a little bit more about the TELL framework and how teachers are using this in the classrooms?
Yeah, so that's it's basically the TELL framework is the underpinning for Catalyst. It's I should say just it is a it's a well-known framework in the field about that defines what good language teaching looks like. Um, and what the framework is one thing, but then it comes with these really cool tools where teachers can give themselves or other people feedback. And so we always like
Mhm.
to say it allows them to put a mirror on their practice. Again, it gets
Okay.
at that, how do I know that I'm really good at? How do I know what I'm not good at or what I'm really good at? And so with these feedback forms, it used to be you have to wait till somebody came to your classroom and see you, but now just pick up your phone, give it to a kid and say, hey, can you record this lesson? And then you can go home and open a bottle of wine or two and use one of these feedback forms and just kind of rate yourself, right, to see where you're at based on these standards that are outlined in that framework.
Mm.
Um, and so, and it's the same framework that we're using for Catalyst as well.
Okay, and sorry, speaking of Catalyst, Dr. Williams asked about Catalyst, which can non-language teachers use it to reach out to current, I would assume teachers is the last one.
I guess. I mean, anybody can sign up for it. Yeah.
Anyway, so maybe it would be interesting if Dr. Williams, if you were to go on there and say, hey, I'm not but this is my affiliation, and I think that'd be pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, I mean, you can search for anybody on there depending on how they set their privacy setting.
Okay.
Some people will show up more than others. So,
How long has Catalyst been around anyway?
I believe we launched it just before the pandemic, and so which was super fortuitous, obviously, because then it kind of blew up during the pandemic because it was online.
Yeah. Is there anything like it?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. That's
And
awesome.
the best part is it came from the field, right? Again, it wasn't top down; it was bottom up. Like, the framework was developed by language teachers, um, and then the platform was developed by language educators at University
Right.
of Maryland, at University of Oregon. So it's not like there's no big brand behind it, no publisher, no. And it's not for evaluation, it's not for assessment. It's truly for teachers, for themselves. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
want them to they own it.
And that, I think that's the greatest thing about not only PEARLL especially, but also is an effect from COVID because everybody is doing something, right, that contributes their own knowledge and skills. And we realize that we have a lot more capacity than we've been told, right?
Yeah.
So with these teachers, all of the pearls with our summer institutes rather, and all of the things that you've mentioned are really grassroots, and this is all by teachers for teachers. They know what's going on.
And I think that's the biggest shift, right? Or one of, not the biggest, it's one of the shifts. Someone's like, if you didn't teach during COVID, like you cannot go into a building right now and say, let me give you some PD if you were not a teacher during COVID. It's almost like teachers, like they wear it as a badge of honor. Like,
Of course.
I was there in April of 2020. Where were you? And
Right.
if you didn't have 5 Zoom windows open and trying to teach your own kids at the kitchen table and were teaching other kids that are, like, you, don't talk to me.
Right.
I'm joking, but it's an important thing because teachers felt like that before. It's just they weren't comfortable saying it out loud, right?
Yeah.
Teachers want PD from people who are actually practicing. So
Mhm.
all of our summer institutes are done by actual practicing teachers. Like I could do them all. I mean, I could do every one of the topics that we're offering as our institutes, but it's much better if I find a teacher who's actually doing it and help other teachers, get better at their own craft.
Yeah. Speaking of the Summer Institute series, I mean, that starts in June, goes until
Yep.
early August, and the registration is already open, and we're seeing courses fill up quickly. There are some still available. I think we have spots in all of them still. But if you could talk a little bit about the different topics of the Summer Institute series and then how people can check it out. Here's the website here. I can see.
Yeah. So this is our website. It is, and I'll put the link to that in the chat as well. But we have a series of institutes. They're all hot button issues for many teachers. Like how do you move learners from input to output? How do you use the target language? How do you actually develop a standards-based curriculum? How do you implement performance assessments? And those, and again, they're all done by practicing teachers.
Mhm.
I'll put the link to them in there. But the important part of it is we don't try to get 50 people for these institutes.
Mhm.
We keep them intentionally small because for us, it's all about training teachers and giving them opportunity to actually get feedback and try something out. So I'd
Mhm.
rather work with a group of 15 teachers, but then have an opportunity to give feedback to every one of those teachers. Like it's not, well, it wouldn't be me anyways. It would be, but whoever the presenter is, right? It's not just the presenter talking. It's like the presenter shares their ideas and then they work with each of the participants to actually try it out of what that could look like when they go back to their own teaching environment.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Because
and any go ahead.
I said that's what teachers want, right? They want it to be applicable. They want it to be from somebody who has done it before. And the other thing is, I also think they want it to be, often when you go to trainings, it's like up here. It's
Right.
like blah 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 blah. Like, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could just all be amazing people? Like peace to the world. Like nobody disagrees. That's fine. But
Hey, don't hate on us idealists, okay?
but the teacher's thinking, I got 240 kids coming on Monday, and I'm happy if they don't curse me out on Monday. Like,
Mhm.
how do I engage them in a way that they actually want to? So we've got to give them training and things that are actually meaningful and actually things that they can
Practical, yeah.
practical. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's
And
awesome.
that was in COVID, right? We didn't have any of this stuff in COVID. All the training was like, okay, how can I share my screen with all my kids and they can see actually, like, I mean, it was, as we started, right? It was super simple things, but it was
Mhm.
practical problems that we had problems and we found practical solutions. So
Right. And that's what I think the beauty of Pearl as well, and the summer institutes, and a lot of the things that we have here is really applicable to everything that's going on, and it's adjustable. It's like this is not if God forbid something happen again and we have like a COVID 2.0 or something like that. I mean, or whatever that looks like, then it'll shift our priorities shift and our everything shifts as we've seen,
Right.
and
Yep.
we're adaptable. So that's really great. So then after they register, and as I understand it, all of these are online, so anyone anywhere can take advantage of these. No,
Oh yeah, we had somebody
is
last
it
year.
asynchronous or synchronous?
It's both. We have, so it's a little bit of synchronous and a little bit of asynchronous. So it has both elements. So you don't have to be tied to a computer for 4 hours or 5 hours a day. In fact, last year we had somebody doing the entire thing from the beach. So during the synchronous times, I saw this particular educator, and she was sitting literally in her beach chair on the Zoom camera, and so yeah, which is also kind of a nice thing, right?
Yeah. And this is the other thing that I love. And at the NFLC, we've already adapted to this well before COVID, but we work from home. And I think a lot of organizations have found that you can do a lot of the same work from your own home and get more work done as a result. And maybe not teachers as much. I mean, but I think that like we've always been sort of on the cutting edge of things here at the NFLC, and PEARLL is no different with teachers.
Yep. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I think the other.
So then after, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What's your question? And then I'll.
Oh, I was gonna say, after they teachers or educators complete a PEARLL offered professional development session, then what happens after? I mean, is yeah.
We, if they agree to, they can opt in and can opt out. We end up kind of following to see what an impact that PD has made. So we end up, they're participating like a research study to see what changes they're actually making in their practice, because we want to find out, did it actually work, did it not work? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then, sorry, you were going to say something before I rudely cut you off.
Oh, that's fine.
Sucks.
I was just going to see some of the other things that we're trying out, or that I think we should be talking about when it comes to PD, is just this idea. Well, there's two things. There's the idea, it's not even, well, first we should talk about what does innovative really mean, right? Innovative means a lot of things for different people. If you haven't experienced it, it could be innovative. Mm-hmm. Somebody who's been doing it for 10 years, that's not innovative, right? Mm-hmm. So for example, in multiple previous lives, I started a series of unconferences for language teachers. And so that was same idea. It's a conference where, it's participant driven. There's no presenters, there's no speakers, everybody's a participant. And we did that 15 years ago. Well, some people are now starting it and they think it's innovative, and that's fine, because it's innovative for them. It was innovative for me when I first did it too, obviously. So that's another thing, right? So lots of these companies are switching to more of those participant-driven models, which I think are fantastic, because it puts people in the driver's seat, but it makes them really uncomfortable, and I think that's so important. It's you may not like it, but it's super easy to just sit back and just like pretend like whatever the presenter is saying. That's the easy part. But when you actually have to participate and contribute, because we always say there's no participants, there's no attendees, only participants in a conference, it changes the game. But people feel so empowered afterwards. And
right.
When we first did it, it was super scary. We didn't know if anybody would show up, but we had 100 people show up for the first one, and it was an incredible 2 days, and people come up with solutions that they never even thought about. So that's one thing. The other thing we tried as well, again, and for some people, they think it's innovative now. Some people have been doing it for a long time. Some people think, oh, we're not ready for that. It's the idea of badging, so that you don't just do the PD, but you also get credit for it. But not credit in terms of a certificate or an hour, but that you get a badge that's digital that you can display on LinkedIn, on add to your resume. And that is tied to evidence. Yes, the problem before, so much training was like, if your butt sat in the seat for 3 hours, you got your credit.
Right.
You could have been asleep for the 3 hours, or I guess now you could just be on TikTok the entire time for the 3 hours and nobody would know.
Are you subliminally saying something?
And but you would get the credit.
Right.
But it doesn't mean anything. And so with badging, we're shifting conversation, like, where is the evidence of your learning? You cannot get the credit, the badge, until you have submitted the evidence of the learning. So it has to be tied to something that actually showcases and demonstrates that you have grown because of the training.
Right. You have to be an active participant in these kind of things. So then Okay,
Yeah.
here's an awkward thing. I wonder, has anybody like fell asleep and you like the teacher comes over, like anybody
Oh,
pokes them?
all the time, all the time, all the time. Of course, I've done it.
That's
Yeah,
so funny.
yeah.
That's amazing.
But we know it works. We know it's also motivating, right? That's why all the Starbucks will give you badges, or everybody's
Right.
giving you the whole gaming idea, right? The reason, or any workout apps, it's all about gaming the thing. So how can we
Yeah, the
game?
digitalization of it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
and that's true. Yeah. Sorry, go
But
ahead.
but the, but but the gaming part is important, right? People, like, they're trash kids, like, they're playing too many games. Like, well, why do they play the games? Because they can. It's not mindless gaming. They play the game because it's a skill. They're getting better and better and better and better, right? It's not like they're
Mm-hmm.
repeating it. They want to get better at it, and
Mm-hmm.
they'll spend hours at the game, or talking to other people, or like trying to get better at whatever the skill happens to be in the game. Well, isn't that what we want for educators too? Don't we want them to get better? So how can we
Right.
basically help game professional development to help teachers get better at their skill?
Mm-hmm.
Because the one thing we haven't talked about, it, which is, I think, it's often the big elephant when it comes to PD, is that, or change in teachers, is there really is very little need for teachers to change their practice.
Mm.
There's always new kids coming in August.
Mm-hmm. Right. They're
Doesn't
always,
matter.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what you do. There's
Right.
always more kids showing up. Every single August, we just start over again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, what I've often said in training with teachers, like, what if one day the kids just don't come? What if one day they just don't show up?
Wow.
And
That's like
you know,
that. I feel like we should do a simulation about that.
well,
That's
we
wild.
did do a simulation
Really?
that it's called COVID,
Duh.
right?
Right.
All of a sudden they weren't there, and so and some of the problems was, like, teachers trying to figure out, how can I play school on
Right.
Zoom? Well, that
Oh
wasn't the whole
God. Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
So, and for language teachers, think about it, it's even bigger, because for language
Yeah.
teachers, we got Google Translate, we got a million apps out there,
Right.
we got your phone, anybody can talk any language. So we really have to figure out, so what's the purpose for kids coming to a language class?
Mm-hmm.
And if we can't find a good answer for that very soon, they literally will not show up,
Right.
because
Oh
they
God.
won't they won't take our classes anymore.
Right. So like the imperative to for this kind of stuff is right there. This is needed like now, because I think we are going to be coming upon that. I mean, with the advent of the internet, let alone all like chat GPT and just like Google Translate, all these kinds of things. There's a lot of chitter chatter that is like, hey, why do we need to study a language anymore? What's
Correct.
the point? And we forget the human element behind that. But even more so, there's all these other layers that we haven't even considered. The world is only getting closer.
Yeah, but it requires teachers to change their practice, right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so obviously professional development is the first way
Sure.
of getting teachers to help
Well,
them
that's
change their
the other
practice.
thing too, is that with Pearl, when we think about language education, like I'm a language lover, I'm not a language teacher, I'm a language seeker, and so I get my education through the teachers. And so if we are targeting the education and changing of teachers, we're going at the source, and then we can distribute the change and affect the change properly among our students and everything. So this is perfect. I mean, this kind of stuff is integral to education these days. So that's really great.
But again, we got to figure out, how do we change the practice faster? Like, we
Yeah.
can't. In the past, it's been like, okay, well, we can plant the seeds for this. Like, school districts or universities like to have multi-year plans of rolling things out. The world does, like, we can't. Apple does. Yeah, sure, Apple plans in multi-years too. But they're releasing stuff much. The updates to your phone will come a lot faster than a multi-year plan, because they have to respond to a need.
Hmm.
And schools, unfortunately, still don't work like that. Now,
Yeah.
teachers, I think, finally are thinking like that.
Hmm.
We just have to help them, also provide them with service. So I'm thinking, we talked about in the beginning, webinars. Like,
Hmm.
this is just putting the old workshops online. Like, that's not revolutionary. Like,
Right.
so all districts are doing it. Now they're saving the money on they don't have to pay the workshop, the guru, to travel anymore, but just nice if you're one of those people. But nothing has changed anymore. So we gotta, yeah, the teachers need solutions faster, and they need them at a faster pace and in a shorter duration.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has, because we're always saturated. We don't have time to watch a hour-long webinar. We don't have time to watch a half. I mean, now it's like, what, this TikTok video is is it really 3 minutes now? Like,
Right.
that's, no, swipe. Yeah, you're gone.
Right.
So we're living in that kind of attention span, and those teachers who have that attention span, if you can't catch them within the first, I mean, you're the TikTok person. How many seconds do I have to get you to stay on my video?
7.
So
Yeah.
so how do I get my message about professional development out in 7 seconds?
Yeah, I mean, quite a an obstacle. I mean, this
Yeah.
is this. Yeah, I mean, I don't envy you at all.
Well, you can help me. So
hey, I'm definitely willing to do that. I have another question though, because for aspiring teachers who hear all these things, and quite often I've heard from students that I've engaged with when talking about the NFLC and our free language learning projects or products to them, there's this whole fear of even becoming teachers, let alone language teachers. And so has PEARLL thought about ways to engage with those populations?
Yeah, I mean, we do have some pre-service teachers who are often participants, and we've been working with organizations like Star Talk to try to provide training to teachers who are career changers who are trying to get into teaching. Because I think there's a lot of people out there. I'm wondering though, instead of, the university might not be happy about this, but I have found that those people who are teaching as a second career are absolutely amazing. Like, it's really difficult for somebody who is 21, 22 to like, okay, I'm going to be a language teacher and just kind of go on that path and stick for like, we're not going to get career teachers anymore. And I'm okay with that. We don't need career teachers. We need the best teachers right now. I don't need a teacher who's going to be amazing in 20 years. I need a real good teacher right now. And so what I find is that those career teachers, those people who speak a language, maybe because they're born, we have, this country is full of people speaking all kinds of languages. If we can find better pathways, and we're looking at that, to become certified, to become teachers, then they're bringing in they're bringing in their language, they bring in their experience from the other career. So that makes them much more adapted dealing with some of the kid issues in classrooms and some of the adult issues in schools, because perhaps they're a little older. It's super hard for a 22-year-old to deal with everything that they have to deal with in a school. I mean, I don't remember when I was 22, but I'm pretty certain that I wouldn't want me to be my teacher, when I was 22.
Right. And Nellie says, great question about new teachers, but also how to preserve current teachers.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. That's the other thing, right? We got to make sure that and that's what we got to give them what they need, not what we, and what they're asking for too, not just what we think everybody should have. So, and helping them to give them a voice in that conversation.
Right. So then, can you talk briefly about this? I know this is another conversation entirely, but could you talk a little bit about how the PEARLL addresses the world language teacher shortage?
I mean, nothing specifically yet, but just like you like to have conversations, you help us have those conversations, and we're trying to figure out how can we develop, alternative certification programs that get more people into the classrooms faster, because just like professional development, certain elements of education have a stronghold in certification as well, from a system that was developed at this point centuries ago. So, if you're a language teacher, why do you have to take 2 semesters, 3 semesters, how many semesters full of classes that have nothing to do with language teaching?
Right.
And I'm sure that's not a popular opinion. But in my experience, we have found that alternative certified teachers are absolutely amazing, because they have just a different buy-in, a different passion, a different commitment to it than somebody who's like, I'm 21. What can I do with my life?
Right. I mean, not to discourage anyone who's 21 and says,
No.
Yeah, right.
It's awesome. I love, of course. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, but what you're saying is that, don't get discouraged if you didn't make that decision at 21 and are
Exactly.
42 or 62 and are like,
Come on
hey,
down.
yeah. I mean, that's very, very true. I think some of my favorite teachers growing up were people who had totally different careers and then were my language teachers because they just provided so much more depth. And also, I mean, just even if they weren't from the location but had experience in that country and teaching. So yeah, that's great. So we only have we don't want to stay too long. I know that the webinar is not meant to be forever, but and we'll have many, many more of these, but could you share some of the last thing, could you share some of the ways that people can be in touch with you immediately, aside from going on our website, which you have shared already, and Summer Institutes? Are there other ways to engage? Like perhaps somebody has a unique idea and or maybe just a thought that comes by that says, hey, I think this would be a good conversation starter, and they want to reach out to you to talk about it or something at their school. I mean, could you talk briefly about that too?
I mean, certainly you can reach out to either PEARLL or NFLC via social media, right? We're pretty much everywhere. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, not TikTok yet.
Not yet.
So that would be probably the easiest way to reach out. And then if you really have cool ideas, we're going to we are going to launch a new series in the fall, which we're calling Tell Me More, Tell Me Teacher Practice for Language Learning.
Yeah.
And where we're going to invite anybody that has an idea to share them in 10 minutes or less. And we hope to publish tons of these videos for people to just get people. So that'll be coming out. Information about that coming out very soon, like this summer.
Fun. And now Nellie also had a question. What do you mean by alternative certified teachers?
Oh, those teachers who didn't go through the traditional, 4-year university program or 4+1, 5th year or early master's program, but some people who already have families, lives, and who are starting over and who try to get certified. And in some districts now, districts are hiring teachers without them being certified, and they're teaching already in the classrooms and getting certified on the side. So
actually, that's what I many moons ago when I was a eager 21-year-old as well, I looked into doing that, and that was the case in Maryland back in the day as well. It was like, sure, you could start teaching and then you can get your certification because it was just such a need. Yeah.
And that we're back there again, obviously.
Yeah. Well, this has been really awesome and very enlightening, and I'm sure we could find so many topics to talk about in this. And so maybe we'll do something again for another webinar series. But for those of you watching at home, or I don't know, on the go, wherever you're watching, then, please stay tuned for more of our NFLC webinar series. Last question, actually, Nellie just said, is that Tell Me More? Where do we check that out? That's not out yet, but it will be in the fall, you mentioned. Yeah. And then that can be found on our social media platforms, no?
Absolutely. Yep.
Awesome. And then and she mentioned Catalyst. But if you just go on the PEARLL website, you can sign up for our newsletter.
Oh,
yeah. So this will happen. All of the information and the details and everything will be available on the newsletter. So, and then if you forget any of this stuff, I mean, just reach out to either one of us or our page, and we'll connect you. So, and please feel free to share all these resources. We're so happy to get the word out to everyone. Thank you so much, Thomas.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. Until next time.
Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.